couple. With that being said, we know that's impossible, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. A two-part series with Dr. Eli Karam, who is a marriage and family therapist by profession, licensed marriage and family therapist. Dr. Karam, welcome back to the show.
It's good to be here.
And before we get into the meat of this, because I'm excited about this, I think everyone can relate about fighting as a couple. But before we get into this, tell me a little bit about licensed marriage and family therapists.
Right. I am here representing, as we said last week, and we will be throughout the year, representing the Kentucky Association of Marriage and Family Therapy, John. So we are mental health professionals that view people from strength, from health, and all their kind of interpersonal context, meaning not just treating the individual alone. What's going on in your relationship at home, maybe in your family of origin, the one family you grew up in, at work, at school. We're going to treat you from a holistic perspective. And marriage and family therapists, there's about 396 or so in Kentucky, part of our organization, and about 24,000 around the country as part of the American Association of Marriage and Family Therapy. So we're here kind of give some tips, share some news, and also tell you how you can find a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Okay, I talked at the beginning about aspiring to be the perfect couple.
Right.
Of course, that's impossible. And when I think about the connotation with couples fighting, it's always bad. Is fighting or arguing, having disagreements with your spouse, is that a bad thing?
It's a great question. A lot of times couples come in and they only know the relationship which they're in and that of their blueprint, their parents, their family of origin. And when people do that, sometimes they miss out on some things. So the reality is we have a lot of good research, the science of relationships and marriage, that says fighting in and of itself, not bad, John. Disagreements, actually better to get them out in the right way rather than stuffing them in. So it's not fighting causes danger in relationships, it's how you fight. So the idea of fair fighting is a series of problem solving, communication skills, emotional kind of self-regulation skills, and that's what we're going to do kind of this week and next week to tell you how to fight the right way, because it's how you repair after the tear really is the most important thing.
Yeah, I think we've all done this, you know, and I'm by no means innocent here, is you've said things you wish you could take back. I guess there needs to be some type of boundaries. So you're the professional, help us out. Tell us about the good way and the bad ways to fight and perhaps some of those boundaries that I call them.
Right. So this idea of taking a timeout. We all know what a timeout is and what it's supposed to be, but some people don't know how to take it the right way. So let me give you some tips. First of all, what not to do for the viewer out there. Do not just bail on your partner. Maybe you think, you know, you're getting in over your head, we cannot have a calm conversation. That might be true, but just don't leave without giving some context or a promise of return. Also, what you don't want to do is hurl an insult on the way out, exploiting your partner's emotional vulnerability, something that happened either earlier in the relationship, before you met them, something that you know is going to sting, trigger an insecurity. You definitely don't want to do that, John. And then the other thing is you don't want to do something destructive or counterproductive while you're taking that time out. And what do I mean by that? Lots of people, they go out and they try to distract themselves by doing something really unproductive, like an addictive behavior, drinking, something that can potentially be harming to you or the relationship. Other people, they'll call somebody, a friend, but it's important who you call, because if you use that time to vent, to bash your partner, that's not good. You know, you should not call someone that is against your relationship or that is going to make you more pumped up and more fired up. You want to talk to somebody that is going to have the opposite of that. So the other skill, okay, is knowing when to do this, because some people, if they wait too long, we have good scientific research. Everything I'm telling you today is based on clinical wisdom and scientific research, that even if you look calm on the outside, once your fuse is blown, you become physiologically flooded, as we call it. You can't have a calm conversation. You have to get out of that situation. And even the best people and the strongest couples, they need about an hour to 2 at minimum of kind of reset time, kind of a refractory period.
And if you've been married for quite some time, as I have, you know the buttons that you can push.
Exactly.
That'll really set your spouse off. And it sounds to me like you're saying when you do that, it's going to snowball.
Yeah.
So how does human nature, that's the essence of an argument.
Right.
You want to get back, you want to get the best of that person. How do you put yourself in check?
Yes. Well, the first thing is having a relationship. So this is what to do. So you have to, before you just get out of the situation, first you have to know when your fuse is blown. Or your partners, because sometimes you know, okay, I can't take any more of this, but your partner still wants to go. So you say a statement like, look, I care about this relationship, but we're at that cycle again, we're at that point again, we need to call a timeout. And you don't say, you're acting crazy, or here you go again. You frame it in the context of the couple. I care about our relationship, but this is no good for us. Don't use blaming language. Frame it as a couple. And then offer the assurance that you will be back. As I said earlier, the number one problem area is people just bailing. And what happens if your partner bails on you and you're the pursuer in the relationship? The more they shut down, the more they stonewall, the more you want to go after them. And it creates these really potential volatile situations. So the general rule of thumb is you want to come back to that conversation a minimum of about an hour, no longer than a day. Because let's say your partner lets you go. And you just come back a couple hours later and you're fine. You don't reinitiate, you're fine, you're going through the motions. They're eventually going to be pissed because they want you to come back and initiate that conversation. So you're going to have to come back anywhere between an hour, no longer than a day. And when you come back, you restart the conversation. And we know that couples that get in the use of practicing this skill, it helps them. But you can't blame, you can't push these buttons and do these predictable things.
Wow, this is really good advice. So I see the value of a timeout. What if someone does have an issue with someone? Obviously, they don't want to bring it up. They don't want things to escalate. Should they go to a professional like a marriage and family therapist to say, okay, can you address this? Can you help us handle this? Because if there is a button that is legit, let's say this person, as you mentioned, let's say every time he or she gets into an argument with their spouse, they say, I'm bailing, I'm out of here. Yeah. I'll see you. They're gone. They do destructive behavior, drink, yes, whatever the case may be. How do they handle that then? Right,
you're exactly right. So this idea, what I'm telling you in a couple minutes, it's easier said than done. So going to a marriage and family therapist who can coach you through these skills, that can teach you how to take the time out like we're talking about today, and what we're going to talk about next week, which is what to do after you come back to the table, is very important. And how you can do that, two ways. You can go to our website, which is www.kamft.org, and they're going to have a place for the public, and you can go on there, see lots of good tips. You can also link to our Facebook site, which is going to have tons of good, useful tips and information updated several times a day. But really, in finding a therapist, you need to go to www.therapistlocator.com. Or .net, excuse me. And what therapistlocator.net is going to do, John, is it's going to give you a listing you can search by last name, maybe if you know someone you want to work with, or if you just want to search by zip code. And of our 300 plus marriage and family therapists in Kentucky, many of them are centered in the Wave Country area. So they're going to be able to help you and assist in this. So you want to make sure you can talk to someone, call them up, interview, and as we said last week, they take a number of insurance, and including TRICARE for the military. A lot of military families are now working with marriage and family therapists. And the best way to get a fit for how that person is going to work is be able to call them, talk to them, tell them about your issue, set up an appointment. And all licensed marriage and family therapists have had specific training on working with couple issues like we're saying. And I'm excited about next week too, John.
I'm excited about next week. We're actually going to put some of this to practice, correct?
Yes, right.
I love that. Dr. Karam, you're fantastic.
All right.
Thank you for the advice. I'm taking it to heart. All righty.